Have you ever found an old penny in a jar of change, looked at it for a second, and wondered if it could be worth something far more than 1 cent? What if I told you that a seemingly ordinary 1965 Lincoln penny, a coin that most people dismiss as common pocket change, might actually carry hidden value worth hundreds, thousands, or even more simply because of errors, minting mistakes, rare varieties, and unusual circumstances that happened during its production? Today we're going to explore one of the most fascinating coins in American numismatics, the 1965 Lincoln penny, and uncover why these coins can be worth so much more than their face value, what kinds of errors and mint mark oddities exist, how they came into circulation, how to identify valuable ones, and what real examples in the market are worth in today's collector landscape. This is the ultimate deep dive script you can use for a YouTube video or any other long-format presentation, telling you everything you need to know about this coin's history, circulation, condition, values, and the rare possibilities that make it valuable. The 1965 Lincoln penny, like all Lincoln cents, carries the familiar image of one of America's most beloved presidents on the obverse, Abraham Lincoln. The Lincoln cent series began in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, and it marked a turning point in U.S. coinage history as the first regular issue coin to feature a real person rather than allegorical figures. Over time, the Lincoln penny became one of the most widely used and recognized coins in everyday American life. By 1965, the design had been in continuous circulation for more than 50 years, with the obverse showing Lincoln's profile and the reverse depicting the symbolic wheat ears that framed the words 1 cent and United States of America. In 1959, the Lincoln Memorial design replaced the wheat ears, and that's the look most 1965 cents carry today, the familiar Lincoln Memorial on the back with the words E pluribus unum above it. The year 1965 was a transitional time in American coinage and the economy. The United States was shifting in many ways, including its approach to coin production. Rising metal prices in the early 1960s had made it difficult for the U.S. Mint to continue producing cents with the traditional 95% copper and 5% tin composition without losing money on each coin produced. While the big change to a primarily zinc core with a thin copper plating did not occur until 1982, the early to mid-1960s nonetheless saw adjustments in minting practices, metal content debates, and production focus at the nation's mints. In 1965, the Lincoln cent was still struck on its classic copper-zinc alloy planchet, and the coins were made at the Philadelphia and Denver mints. Philadelphia coins carry no mint mark, while Denver coins bear a small d above the date on the obverse. The San Francisco Mint did not produce business strike cents that year, only proof coins for collectors were made there. The mintage figures for the 1965 Lincoln penny are large. Tens of millions of coins were struck to meet the circulation demands of a growing economy that still relied heavily on physical currency for everyday purchases. Because hundreds of millions of these coins were made, most 1965 pennies you encounter today are common and were used in circulation for years. In ordinary circulated condition, where the coin has signs of wear, surface dulling, scratches, and handling marks, most 1965 Lincoln cents are worth only their face value of 1 cent or a few cents to collectors completing a date set. That commonality, however, masks a deeper story. For every very common coin, there can be rare survivors, unusual mint errors, odd planchet irregularities, misstrikes, mint mark anomalies, and other fascinating varieties that escaped into circulation and beyond. These coins are the ones that collectors love, and they are the reason why a 1965 penny so ordinary at first glance can sometimes be worth far more than 1 cent. To understand how such value differences arise, it helps to know a bit about how coins are made. Coins begin life as planchets, flat metal discs that have been punched from rolled sheets of metal. These planchets are fed into coin presses where two engraved dies, one bearing the obverse design and the other bearing the reverse design, strike the planchet with enormous force. The interaction of metal flow and engraved dies creates the final coin with raised design elements. Ideally, every coin would be struck perfectly, with the planchet centered between the dies and the metal flowing smoothly to capture all the design detail. But in reality, coins are produced under high speed and high volume pressures, and occasionally the process does not go exactly as intended. Errors can happen at different stages of production. Sometimes the planchet itself might be defective, improperly punched, clipped, or missing part of its metal comp. You think a penny is just a penny, something you barely notice when it clinks into a jar or falls out of your pocket, but what if I told you that one particular Lincoln penny from 1969 could be worth far more than its face value, even hundreds or thousands of dollars, because of tiny quirks, mistakes, die errors, minting anomalies, and rare production varieties that slipped through the United States Mint's presses more than half a century ago. This is the story of the 1969 Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that looks ordinary at a glance but can hide astonishing value within its small copper circle, a coin that links us to the rich history of American coinage, the mysteries of minting technology, and the thrill of discovery that numismatists and collectors live for. If you've ever wondered whether something as humble as a penny could really be a treasure, then listen closely, because the 1969 Lincoln cent is one of the most intriguing, collectible and potentially valuable coins in the entire Lincoln series. The 1969 Lincoln penny is part of an American coinage tradition that stretches back to 1909, when the Lincoln cent was first introduced to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Prior to 1909, pennies like the Indian head cent had dominated everyday commerce for decades, but the decision to depict Lincoln on the nation's smallest denomination was revolutionary. For the first time in U.S. circulating coinage history, a real president appeared on an everyday coin, symbolizing reverence for Lincoln's legacy and celebrating his role in preserving the Union during the Civil War. Victor David Brenner's portrait of Lincoln had a classical dignity that resonated with the public, and millions of these coins entered circulation in their first year alone. From that humble beginning, the Lincoln cent series continued uninterrupted, becoming one of the longest-running coin series in American history. Over the years, the penny underwent several design evolutions while maintaining Lincoln's consistent presence on the obverse. The reverse design changed from the original wheat ears to the Lincoln Memorial starting in 1959, commemorating the sesquicentennial of Lincoln's birth and the 50th anniversary of the Lincoln cent itself. In 2009, the reverse design celebrated Lincoln's bicentennial with 4 distinct images before the adoption of the Union Shield reverse in 2010, which remains in use today. But the core of the coin even in 1969 remained that familiar obverse portrait and the enduring story it carries. The United States Mint produced 1969 Lincoln cents at the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, with the mint marks indicating which plant struck the coin. Philadelphia issues typically lack a mint mark, while Denver coins carry the letter D. In 1969, the Denver Mint was responsible for producing hundreds of millions of Lincoln cents that would flow through banks, businesses, and everyday transactions across the country. To the average consumer, the 1969 Lincoln penny was simply pocket change, a minor unit of currency used in everyday life. Most of these coins show the signs of that life: wear, scratches, fading, dirt, and the usual indicators of circulation. Ordinary circulated 1969 pennies in typical condition are generally worth their face value because their physical state and abundance do not attract significant collector interest. The U.S. Mint produced so many of these coins that the common issues from that year remain plentiful in circulation, coin rolls, and collections. However, this ordinary status changes dramatically when you step into the world of uncirculated coins, early strikes, proof-like specimens, and especially error coins and minting anomalies. These are the coins that capture collectors' imaginations and command values far beyond a single cent. Before exploring the specific types of errors and their potential market value, it's important to understand how coins are produced and how mistakes can occur in a process that otherwise seems precise and automated. A planchet blank must be prepared from metal strips, often copper or copper alloy, during the era of the 1969 cent, then annealed, cleaned, and made ready for striking. Meanwhile, the coin dies that carry the negative image of the design are prepared, hardened, and mounted in coining presses. When the planchet enters the press between the obverse and reverse dies, tremendous pressure is applied, forging the design into the metal and creating the finished coin. Despite modern production controls, the sheer scale of coinage operations ensures that occasional mistakes happen. A planchet might shift slightly, the die might receive a second impression in the wrong alignment, a foreign object could interfere at the moment of striking, or metal inconsistencies might affect how the coin is formed. When such mistakes occur and the coin still enters distribution, those coins become error coins and can attract significant interest from collectors. Have you ever picked up what looks like just a common penny, glanced at it for a half second, and nearly tossed it back into your wallet, yet later wondered if that tiny copper disc in your hand might actually be worth far more than just 1 cent? That's exactly the kind of curiosity that surrounds the 1977 D Lincoln 1 cent, a coin that most people see as everyday pocket change but that can, in rare cases, be worth many times its face value because of errors, mistakes, mint mark oddities, die varieties, and collector demand. We're going to dive deep into this fascinating coin, its history, why most examples are common and only worth face value, what makes certain 1977 D pennies valuable, how error coins occur, how grading and condition affect worth, and all the possibilities that can turn a 1-cent coin into something far more collectible. The Lincoln Penny series is one of the longest-running and most recognizable coin series in United States history. First introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was revolutionary at the time for being the first regular U.S. circulating coin to feature a real person rather than an abstract representation of liberty. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the obverse shows Lincoln's portrait and the reverse originally depicted wheat stalks but was updated in 1959 to the Lincoln Memorial design, a design that remained standard for decades. The Lincoln Memorial reverse on the 1977 D penny carries the familiar building image with the words United States of America and 1 cent encircling it, while the obverse shows Lincoln's bust with Liberty and In God We Trust alongside the date and mint mark. In 1977 the United States Mint produced Lincoln cents at several facilities. The Philadelphia Mint struck coins that bore no mint mark, and the Denver Mint struck a huge number for general circulation that year, carrying the small d mint mark just beneath the date. These are the 1977 D pennies we're focusing on. According to minting statistics, the Denver Mint produced about 4,149,062,300 Lincoln cents in 1977. This means billions of these pennies were released into everyday commerce: pocket change, cash registers, vending machines, payment transactions, and savings jars, and most ended up being spent repeatedly over the decades. Because so many were made, most 1977 D Lincoln pennies are common and in everyday circulated condition. They are only worth their face value of 1 cent or perhaps a couple of cents to a collector simply completing a date and mint set. At first glance, that might seem unexciting, just another coin you pass over at the checkout counter. But the 1977 D penny has a deeper story, and it's one you'll want to explore if you're interested in coins that enter the collector market with values dramatically different from face value. There are several reasons this particular date and mint mark have special interest for numismatists: the potential for error coins, the rarity of high-grade uncirculated examples, and the existence of particular varieties that can carry significant premiums. The contrast between a common penny worth a cent and a rare collectible worth far more comes down to condition, rarity, and error types. Condition refers to how much detail remains on a coin, whether it shows heavy wear from circulation or retains crisp features and original luster as if never spent. Coins in better condition command higher prices among collectors because they are less common. Most coins do not survive decades of handling while staying pristine. Rarity refers to how many of a particular variety are known to exist. Error coins are anomalies, coins that deviated from the intended production process due to mechanical or human mishaps, and when they are sufficiently rare and identifiable, collectors pay premiums for them. The most basic distinction for 1977 D Lincoln cents is between circulated and uncirculated examples. Coins that have circulated in commerce for years, showing smooth, worn features, faded design elements, and surface scratches from handling, are almost always worth only a few cents to collectors, often close to face value. They are common survival of everyday coin use and do not command premiums unless part of a full collection. By contrast, uncirculated coins, those that escaped circulation and retain crisp detail, sharp rims, defined lettering, and original luster, are worth more by virtue of their condition alone. As of the most recent coin pricing guides, 1977 D pennies in high mint state grades such as MS65 red can be worth around $20 or more, and particularly exceptional specimens graded even higher can bring substantially more. For example, certified uncirculated examples graded MS66 or MS67 command premiums that reflect their scarcity in top condition, and record auction sales show that some coins of this type have brought very high prices. One historic red uncirculated 1977 D penny sold for over $7,000 at H. You've probably dropped a penny into a jar today without a second thought, but what if I told you that one tiny coin from 1981 could be worth dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of dollars because of small imperfections, mint mistakes, and rare production errors that make it stand out to collectors all over the world? What seems like ordinary pocket change might actually be a hidden treasure, and once you understand the story behind the 1981 Lincoln 1 cent and the kinds of errors that elevate its value far beyond its face, you'll never look at pennies the same way again. Millions of 1981 Lincoln pennies were made, most of them circulated for everyday use, but among them are coins with unusual characteristics that can make them incredibly valuable. The 1981 Lincoln penny is a seemingly mundane coin that hides a fascinating world of minting history, production quirks, and collector demand, and if you pay attention to the details you may find that what looks like a 1-cent piece could actually be something much more rare and significant. The 1981 Lincoln penny is part of a long and storied tradition of American coinage that began with the introduction of the Lincoln cent in 1909. For the first time in the history of United States coinage, a real individual, President Abraham Lincoln, was featured on regular circulation coins. Prior to 1909, U.S. cents featured designs such as the Indian head cent, but none of them depicted a specific historical person. Lincoln was chosen to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth and to recognize his legacy as one of the most revered leaders in American history. Victor David Brenner was the designer of the original Lincoln cent, and his portrait captured the dignity and humanity of Lincoln in a way that resonated with the American public. The coin was an immediate success and millions were struck in its first year alone. Over the decades that followed, the Lincoln cent became one of the most familiar and enduring pieces of currency in American life. Generations of Americans grew up handling pennies bearing Lincoln's portrait in everyday transactions and storing them in jars, piggy banks, and coin collections. The Lincoln cent has seen changes in design and composition over the years, but it has never lost its place in the nation's coinage system. In 1959, the reverse was changed from the original wheat ears design to the Lincoln Memorial to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and the 50th anniversary of the Lincoln cent. That design remained in place until 2008. In 2009, as part of bicentennial celebrations of both Lincoln's birth and the centennial of the coin's introduction, 4 new reverse designs were released, each depicting a different aspect of Lincoln's life. Beginning in 2010, the Lincoln cent adopted the Union Shield reverse, which remains in use today. In 1981, the Lincoln cent featured the Lincoln Memorial on the reverse and the familiar obverse portrait of Lincoln facing right, with the motto "In God We Trust" above, the word "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1981 to the right. Pennies that were struck at the Denver Mint, as many were, carry a small letter D beneath the date, while those struck at the Philadelphia Mint do not carry a mint mark. Both varieties were produced in large quantities in 1981. The United States Mint struck hundreds of millions of these coins for circulation, and most eventually entered everyday use. To the average person, a 1981 Lincoln penny is simply a 1-cent coin, a unit of currency worth exactly 1 cent in commerce. But for coin collectors and students of numismatics, the story is much more complex and intriguing. Ordinary circulated examples of the 1981 Lincoln penny are typically worth face value. Pennies found in pocket change, cash registers, or coin rolls usually show the signs of everyday use: scratches, wear, dirt, and faded detail, and these factors generally keep their value at or very close to 1 cent. Even uncirculated examples that have never seen circulation and retain sharp details and original mint luster typically sell for only modest premiums above face value, often a few cents to a few dollars depending on condition and overall demand. However, as soon as we enter the world of mint errors, production irregularities, and rare varieties, the value landscape changes dramatically. Certain mistakes made during the minting process can turn an otherwise ordinary-looking coin into a highly desirable and valuable collectible. To understand the value potential of these coins, you need to understand how coins are made and how errors occur. The minting process begins with planchettes, blanks punched from metal strips composed primarily of copper for pennies struck in 1981. These blanks go through preparation steps including annealing, cleaning, and inspection, after which they are fed into coin presses. In the presses, the blanks are struck between 2 steel dies that carry the negative designs of the obverse. You might think that a penny is just pocket change, something you barely notice when you toss it into a jar or hand it to a cashier, but what if I told you that one specific coin from 1982 with a Denver Mint mark could be worth far more than its face value, potentially dozens or even hundreds of dollars or more because of rare minting errors, mistakes, and unusual production varieties that slipped through quality control more than 4 decades ago. That's right, a coin you might find in your change right now could be hiding a story thousands of people would love to know about, because the 1982 D Lincoln 1 cent is one of those modern coins that looks ordinary at first glance but contains a fascinating world of mint history, production nuances, and hidden value that collectors chase around the world. The 1982 D Lincoln penny exists at a unique crossroads of American numismatic history. It was struck at the Denver Mint, one of the most prolific coin production facilities in the United States, and it was produced in a year when the Mint made a dramatic change in how the Lincoln penny was manufactured. That change introduced complexities into the coinage that continue to affect value and collectors' interest to this day, and the story behind how these coins are made and why some of them now fetch more than their 1-cent face value is rich, surprising, and deeply rooted in the broader narrative of the Lincoln Cent series. The Lincoln Cent itself is one of the longest-running and most beloved coin series in United States history. When it was first introduced in 1909, it marked a departure from earlier 1-cent designs by featuring a real historical figure for the first time on regular circulation coinage: President Abraham Lincoln. Prior to 1909, U.S. cents had worn designs such as the Indian head or flying eagle, but none had depicted an actual United States president. The decision to put Lincoln on the obverse was both artistic and symbolic, honoring the 100th anniversary of his birth and recognizing his enduring legacy as the leader who preserved the Union through the Civil War and stood for liberty and justice. Victor David Brenner, the designer, captured Lincoln's likeness in a way that was both dignified and instantly recognizable, and the public embraced the new coin from the moment it entered circulation. The Lincoln Cent has undergone several changes throughout its history. For the first 50 years of its existence, the reverse featured 2 wheat ears surrounding the words 1 cent, a design known today as the wheat ear reverse. In 1959, the reverse was redesigned to feature the Lincoln Memorial to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth and the 50th anniversary of the Lincoln Cent itself. That Lincoln Memorial design remained in place until the bicentennial celebration of Lincoln's birth in 2009, when the United States Mint released 4 different reverse designs to represent separate themes in Lincoln's life. Beginning in 2010, the series adopted the Union Shield reverse that continues in modern coinage today. In 1982, the Lincoln penny still had the Lincoln Memorial reverse. On the obverse was Lincoln's bust facing right, with the motto "In God We Trust" across the top, the word Liberty on the left side, and the date 1982 on the right. If the coin was struck at the Denver Mint, it carried a small letter D beneath the date. Coins struck at the Philadelphia Mint generally carried no mint mark. The Denver Mint that year struck hundreds of millions of Lincoln pennies intended for everyday circulation, and most of these coins would be used in grocery stores, vending machines, cash registers, piggy banks, and collections of loose change across the country. To the average person, a 1982 D Lincoln penny in worn condition is worth a 1 cent, its face value, and that is what most people think of when they handle these coins. However, collectors and numismatists look at coins differently. They pay attention to condition, rarity, production varieties, minting mistakes, and deviations from normal strikes. Coins in pristine, uncirculated condition are generally worth more than worn coins because they show sharp details and original surfaces untouched by circulation. A 1982 D Lincoln penny in uncirculated condition without errors might be worth a few cents to a few dollars depending on condition and collector demand, with prices influenced by professional grading and how well the surfaces have held up over time. But the real value potential comes from error coins, those coins that were not produced exactly the way the mint intended, because scarcity and novelty often drive collector interest and market value. Before we dive deep into the specific types of errors and what they might be worth, it helps to understand how coins like the 1982 D Lincoln penny are made and where errors can originate. Coin production involves a sequence of precise mechanical and metallurgical steps. It begins with metal strips of the